New tonight, he fought for this country and then for a chance to return to what he called home. One Vietnam veteran who made a mistake that would get him deported, a mistake he paid for until the end of his life.
Border reporter Oscar Margain tells the story of a Mexican man who his family says lived every day as an American.
Before he was known as a hero to his family, Carlos Torres was a mischievous child who would grow up into a selfless man, one that faced many of his adversities with humor.
He was always told, well, you're Mexican, and then over there they would tell him the same thing, like, no, you're not Mexican, you're American, and he would just be torn apart to where it's kind of hard. So I think he used his humor more than anything to cope with everything.
He was born across the border in Reynosa in 1954. Only 10 months old, he was brought legally to Texas, where he became a resident. He spent much of his formative years between Texas and California
in Vietnam
before the U.S. got involved in the Vietnam War, prompting his enlistment in the Army in 1972. It was then Carlos was assured his nationality matched his loyalty.
My son, the day you signed that line, you became a citizen. That was a lie.
Norma Torres says her brother believed he was an American citizen all his life until he was arrested in Houston for possession of marijuana in 1994. Prison time was followed with deportation to Mexico.
Basically, he was punished for life.
Pretty lonely there. It was pretty lonely in Mexico.
His 7 children would do their best to visit him. Reynosa is considered one of the most dangerous cities on the border for cartel violence. Carlos and his family fought long to bring him back, and they would get their wish too late. Carlos died from a heart attack in Reynosa Saturday. Over the years, lawmakers have tried to repatriate deported veterans. All have failed. Deported veteran groups estimate the number of foreign service members to be in the thousands. Nowadays, a naturalization process starts at training, but not for veterans of past wars.
You got your hands tied, in so many ways. There's so much red tape.
Carlos Torres asked for asylum, asked for veteran benefits, and asked for a legal way to return home.
Until the law is changed, the only way they're going to get back is in their coffin.
And if they're lucky, with full military honors. Even after Carlos's death, this family of servicemen and women vowed to fight for a title they feel their hero deserves. In Mission on the Texas-Mexico border, I'm Oscar Margain reporting.